Good morning.
Morning.
Doesn't feel like a month. Well, to me, it doesn't.
Okay.
Since we've spoken,
Maybe to me, the opposite. It feels like it was a long time ago.
that might be because I've been away on holiday, come back, eaten a lot of ice cream.
Well, to you, you mean, or for me?
Yeah, for me. I
Yeah,
mean,
I didn't go on holidays. You know, you ate a lot of ice cream. That's cool.
well, we flew to Boston, had a
Hmm.
whole loop around the whole area
To go
through.
watch the fall leaves.
Yeah, it really was as impressive as everyone says.
Okay,
And we
cool.
went to the Ben and Jerry's factory.
Oh, I'm jealous. That sounds very cool. How was it?
It was really good. It was it's
So you
done
went up to
very
Vermont. That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was done really well. Like the way they obviously care about what they do. Now, I was cynical because of course Unilever bought
Yeah, it's
Ben and
difficult not to
Jerry's.
be cynical about Ben and Jerry's. I mean, I'm not cynical about
However,
who they were, where they started, and what they do in general. But I think
yes,
yeah, tell me. I think they have a lot of autonomy about what they do, but
yeah,
I'm
they
not sure.
do. They do. That's the thing I was going to say is I was cynical, and then when they put together the agreement with Unilever, they specifically said we still want to have all the money going to these causes. We still want to be able to pay all our workers this and blah blah blah. They put all that into the agreement,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That is pretty
It's
cool."
also smart of Unilever to buy what it is that
Yes,
made them different and to let them be that, because
yes,
otherwise they're kind of destroying the value of what they bought.
exactly.
Um, so that's another reason to be cynical. But that said, it's good. Hopefully, it's good. I don't know.
It was a
Where
great
it's
experience.
I'm sure. I'm where it's I don't know. I'm automatic. Yeah. So how was the visit? Sorry. Please keep going.
No, but you've gone into your branding hat. It's great. So
No,
the
not right now.
so we were there over kind of over almost over Halloween, and
That's
the
very cool. It's cool to
American
be in the States for
advertising
Halloween.
American advertising. Oh, and TV ads. Oh
Hmm.
my God.
It's nuts.
Just it's nuts. And I didn't realize how huge Reese's were in the
Oh yeah.
US. They're massive.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like
big.
huge, and which is good for me
Big
because
deal.
it's a huge deal. So the have you I don't know if you've seen, you can get Ben and Jerry's cookie dough in a pack,
I
little bits of
know,
cookie
but I'm
dough.
not surprised.
Right. So the first time I saw it, I think it was in the cinema here in the UK. And I was like, oh, it's
You
a
could buy that
packet
in
of
the cinema. I thought that
yeah.
was like a supermarket product
Well,
to eat
I
with a
didn't
spoon. That is
know.
sounds
It's
gross.
lots of little bits of cookie dough in a pack.
Oh right, okay. So you have the little pellets.
Yeah. I'd never
Ah,
seen it before. I first saw it in the cinema
you're
and
still
then I
kind of
saw
eating
it.
it bit by bit.
Yeah,
So like only
exactly.
cookie dough. That's so
So good. So good. And then, of course, buying it in the
it's so
supermarket.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, in the US, it's multiple flavors.
Sure, of course.
So,
Why wouldn't you have multiple flavors? Let's
exactly. But
segment this thing.
I'd never seen multiple flavors. So, of course, I had
Amazing.
peanut butter flavored chunks of cookie dough. Oh my God. And they let us try this. They've got a churro flavored ice cream.
Uh-huh. What does that
So
even
good.
mean?
So good.
Is the dough a churro before it's fried? How is it?
Uh, the churro flavor is like a cinnamony. I think it's pre-fried, but it definitely tastes like churros.
Yeah, but I mean, it has to be artificial. The
Oh yeah,
fact,
of
so
course.
I'm trying to make it a philosophical question. You can make it is a donut flavor a donut before it's fried. I mean, how do you get the essence of the donut? It has to
You
be
pose
artificial.
you pose a very good question. You
And
very good point.
I'm sure food scientists have been hard at work on that question to be able to create such things as the churro flavor.
Yeah, and of course the one of the jobs at the factory is to be a taster for Ben and Jerry's. And
Of course.
if you invent a flavor or if you suggest a flavor and they take it on, you get free ice cream for life. And you go to the factory. Of course, it's a massive
It's so
marketing
funny.
exercise, but I
Of
don't
course.
care. I'm quite
No,
happy
no,
to
I'm
go
just
along with it and see the factory and see everything
it's
they're
cool. I would
doing, what
love
they
to go
do.
see it.
Yeah, is and the other thing that makes it cool is it really is in the middle of the mountains. You
Wow.
come out and it was a bit rainy, and you can just see mountains. And it's
That
not
sounds
where
really
they
nice. I've heard a lot of good
originally
things about
started.
Vermont. And
Oh
you can
yeah,
go ski
it's
there.
oh you what that yeah. We tend to go on holiday in October, towards the end of October, because I have a 2 week half term at
Mm.
my school. Most schools have 1 week, so it's kind of at
Oh,
the
okay.
off season. It's in between seasons. It's not summer and it's not winter. So a lot
It's a
of
good time to
places
go on holidays
are
when you don't have kids.
dead quiet. Yeah. Or when we everywhere on Maine, on the coast, it's all like seafood and there's
Yeah,
that
I've heard
smell of
amazing things
seafood in
about
the
Maine
air.
seafood. Have you had
Yeah.
like some? Did you go for lobster and stuff?
See, I don't like seafood.
Oh, you
I
don't
don't,
like seafood? Okay.
I'm not a fan. But the food was great.
Even
The people
lobster?
were great. Yeah, I know, but didn't try it. But
All right.
the it was they you can tell it's a very
Do you know how much
distinctive kind
Americans
of area.
spend over the Halloween period? Because I did a talk at the school on Halloween and Christmas
Uh,
advertising last weekend.
I dread to think how many millions is it?
Millions?
Okay,
No,
how
no,
many
no.
billions?
Uh-huh.
How
Do you
many?
care to guess?
Two.
12.
Hang
Last,
on.
so to be
You,
honest, I don't
can
have
you
that.
you
So
have to
to be honest,
define this? How did you
last
define?
last year, so last year's spending for Halloween was, and I mean, you have to go back to the actual article, but because I only paid some bits. Last year was 10.6 billion. This year was meant to reach an all-time high of 12.2, but I haven't checked what the actual spending is. But I don't think we're gonna
And
get the
this
results
is
right now. And so how is it
costumes.
split out?
Yeah.
How is it split out? It's split out about equally between costumes for 4.1 billion, candy 3.6 billion, decorations 4 billion, and 700 million on pet costumes. The world is doomed. We're just
Well, this is
and
another
it's
thing.
all because of brands and people who do my work.
Yeah, each of you, yes. What value are you
I mean,
adding to the
I'm
world?
only a drop of water in that ocean, but clearly,
But
I mean, there's
so
and I know we're just cynical, but there's a lot of joy and amusement, and it's a great holiday, and there's parties, and the kids are super happy, stuffing their faces with candy.
and there's John
Uh,
Carpenter.
there's John Carpenter. There's very cool, fun spoofs of horror movies by a bunch of different brands.
Oh, and speaking of which,
Yeah.
I'm into uh Not Guilty, whatever Harry Dresden Files it is, where spoilers, there's a
Spoilers about how the Dresden Files.
there's a dark magic, black magic somebody who's making the movie monsters real.
I forgot about that one. I've read so many.
And of course
That's
it's
awesome.
Halloween. So we've been watching
That's great.
Halloween, and then he goes to SplatterCon, the
Oh
three
yeah, that one.
exclamation
That
marks.
one's good.
Yeah,
Bladdercon is a funny one.
and he
Molly's
and
all
like
starting to get grown
the
up. She's a
Reaper.
teenager now.
Yeah, the Reaper appears,
Yeah,
which is obviously a reference to Michael Myers.
yeah,
It was very funny. It
yeah.
all seemed to tie together really well. The one before this one was super dark.
What was
Where
that one?
I can't remember what it's called. They
There's a
always
few of them
blur
that get
now.
dark.
It's the
Yeah.
one. It's the one where the demon presence is in his head now, and he realizes it.
Oh yes.
The T Rex. It was the T Rex one.
Oh, that one was good. That one
It's
was
really
that
good.
final with the T-Rex was so good. I saw it coming, but only a second before it happened. I'm like, oh my god, I know where they're going.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
The Natural History Museum was
Yeah,
foreshadowing all along. That rampage, but that was dark. Yeah, they're like evil ones. Oh, you're like, oh my
yeah.
god, these are evil ones,
It
and
was.
they get
It was.
away. So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But it also there's definitely a sense of building, and again,
Mm-hmm.
it comes back to this whole
That's
story
from the moment
structure
there's more of
thing.
yeah, you feel more threads coming together
Yeah.
as there's something bigger going on,
Yeah.
while still maintaining the
Yeah.
episode per book, which is really good. It's very
That's
well done, I think.
a massively I don't know how he did it. It's like when you told me that story about someone, his coach telling him make the most over the top exaggerated thing, and he did, and it's become this thing. Oh, and also one of my pupils has heard of the Dresden Files.
Awesome. I think, and did you see how? I mean, I love how it builds. They're so simple, but they're so really well done.
Yeah.
And very entertaining.
Yes.
And it starts the first couple. I still remember to this day, having heard a lot about it, like from somebody else, a little bit like I told you. And I read the first one, and I was like, oh, it's okay. And a little bit later, I read the second one. I was like, well, I guess it's fine. I'll just drop it for a while. And then I picked it up again years later. And then it's just the more you read, the better it gets. I think he got better as a writer too. I mean, that's also I don't know.
Well, I don't know. He's
really good. It's funny.
He's the stylistic. It's very good.
Yeah.
You just think, how much more can this guy take?
It has I don't know if you've noticed this for yourself. I think it has a bit of a sitcom quality. He's always
smart ass comments.
Yeah, the smart ass comments. And as so far as he's the main character, and he starts being the annoying ones at times. And I prefer the side character. I find him annoying at times. The more it goes, I love him. I like him a lot, but I also find him like sometimes a bit. But he's on purpose over the top. So
I haven't found him annoying yet.
Okay, I've occasionally found him annoying.
I just feel like give him a break already. But I do like all the other characters.
The other characters are fantastic.
I think Nicodemus is amazing, even though he's only been in one. And this whole blurring of the dark, like his mentor Ebenezer, really fantastic. Really interesting idea of the council. Like there's lots of grey.
Yeah,
he lived in a world of black and white, and now he's like, oh my god.
Yeah, he's growing up to a world of adults with like organizations, factions that are all dealing with not ideal situations and a lot of crap everywhere.
Which is why Michael is such a great character.
Yeah. Also, because he's like very clear. It's white or black. I'm on the right side.
Very the idea simple. Of wielding a sword like that because of faith is just awesome.
Yeah.
Just very, very,
it is very good. It's good because I'm reading the last Mistborn book of Brandon Sanderson. Apparently, there's like more news coming out about that being adapted in a movie. It's nowhere near as entertaining, and I'm still baffled.
You've really persevered with that.
I left it to the side for a couple of months, and I thought even my girlfriend was like, "Well, why are you? I thought you're not exactly. Why are you reading them if you're not really enjoying it?" I'm like, "Well, I just want to finish the whole thing." It's not that I'm hating it. I'm enjoying it enough to read page by page, but I'm nowhere near the same level of enjoyment as like the Dresden Files, for example.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like it, and after I finished the first one, I was like, "Well, that was good," but it was that. How did I keep reading it? I've just read like 150 pages. Like, what's gone?
It does. It goes very fast. I heard his other series are pretty good too, so I'm probably going to check them out.
How many series? How's he
reading count? By the way,
well, just before I answer that question, how many? What he's got another series?
Oh yeah, he's got two or three.
How the hell does he write all this stuff?
Well, yes. That reminds me of I saw bits of a conversation between George R. R. Martin and Stephen King, and George R. R. Martin going like, "I hate you. How do you write so much? How do you do it? What is your secret?" And Stephen King doesn't have any other than I just start writing, and then I finished the book, and then I started.
Well, what I like about Stephen King is it's so much of his stuff pops up everywhere else, like his films, and maybe it's because it's Halloween. Like I've seen so much of his things. So much of his stuff is so. Some of it's rubbish, but some of it's done really well. Like Christine is again John Carpenter. That's a really good film.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a really long time.
It's and so many I didn't know about. Like Creep Show is a lot of his ideas. Like
I didn't know
in there. Well, at least that's what Davina told me. But this whole idea of like writing and creating it keeps coming back to me.
It's good. It's funny that you bring it back, because I was just thinking this week that I started this whole thing on writing in late summer, and then it just went out the window the last 2 months. I've not been doing any of it. I've been doing other stuff, and I started working on a business plan, and September was mostly just down out the drain on working on my American University course, to be then told that everything's dated.
Who told you that?
That's one of the students. I realized, and I was vexed at first, because I was like, do you know how much time I spent updating things from the previous professor? Now updating things also to things that I could teach altogether anyway, and trying to be relevant.
Did he mean that your references were dated, or the information was dated?
I just tried to have that conversation anyway. I don't really want to. All right, this is my take on it, and it's a joke at the same time. Is that just to young people, everything is dated. It doesn't matter where.
Well, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to hint at. I make references to. I still have old slides that have memes. Right. Exactly, memes and stuff, and I'm like, they look at it and go, they just blankly. They just don't get the reference. I'm like, oh man.
I don't even try that. I don't try that. Not worth it. Anyway,
although sometimes I'll throw something into a conversation. The only thing that seems
to work is whether if I start trying to integrate more TikTok conversations.
Oh,
and I'm so not into TikTok. I don't care.
Me too. But however, sometimes I throw something into a conversation. I'm surprised they get the reference, and it's because some TikToker has done something from the 90s.
That is very funny.
Which again feels like the 90s. That was just 10 years ago or something. Oh no, it was 30.
We're old.
We are old. Well, I'm close to 50 now, so there's no getting away from that.
Anyway, yeah.
You were gonna ask me about how's the reading the book count.
Yeah.
So mostly because of Dresden Files.
Which is thankfully that's how I did it last 2 years.
I think I last time I checked was at 21. Although for some reason, Bird by Bird, and that includes graphic novels.
Okay.
Because I've reread Watchmen, but that for some reason on holiday I started getting back into Bird by Bird. I couldn't get into it, and then I started reading it again, and I
didn't realize you couldn't get into it. I thought you were, but okay.
I got into it. Tried to get into it, stopped. Tried to get into it again, stopped, and I kept reading chapters. And then suddenly, over the holiday, I hoovered it up. It was the rest of it. I read it. I was like, oh, I finished it. And I think it's funny you should say that because I bought them here. I'm now reading this.
Okay.
I read this.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that one.
I read The War of Art. And now I've finished also now Bird by Bird. And these all have different takes on the creative process. I think The War of Art is great.
Yeah, you told me about that one. But I thought you had finished it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I finished it a couple of years ago. But no, I didn't reread it. I'm kind of drawing a thread between all the books I've read.
Please keep going.
About all the writing process books. So I read The War of Art first, thought it was great. Talk about the resistance and keeping going, and you're not going to want to write, and you just write, and then there's stuff in that. Bird by Bird I thought was really funny and practical at the same time. I don't know how she wrote something so readable about the creative process. And I think the reason I was finding it hard is because she's so on the nose. She's so real.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I might reread it.
Her thought I could hear our conversations in what she was saying about not wanting to write, and then you feel rubbish, and then your thought process spirals, and then you're distracted by something and you come back to it, and then she drops little nuggets in there like keep a notebook on you, have your index cards, and you're not going to feel like writing, just write 250 words, and like the shitty first draft is going to be like it's going to be rubbish. Accept it and then edit, and then ask someone and writing groups, which is something I'm not familiar with at all.
That's also what Brandon Sanderson was talking about at the beginning of this course
Oh,
as
does
an
he?
essential keystone of his success and everybody's success.
Writing is part of a group?
Writing is part of a group, and because you have a commitment
Oh,
to write with other people, and you have a commitment to give like 1,000 or 2,000 words every week.
okay. And then
So,
people
and it's
giving
real.
feedback?
Yeah, it depends. That depends how you constitute the rule, like the what you do with your writing group. And there's probably as many rules as there are writing groups, or there's many ways to do it. But one way or another, it's a structure.
Yeah.
So it's the commitment, it's the meeting on a frequent basis, and
Yeah.
it's a commitment to keep working at it. And yes, typically it's giving feedback and stuff.
Well, that's what she says in the Bird by Bird about writing groups.
And I
But then
think I
she also
mentioned this in
says,
one of our other calls. Sorry, but Brandon Sanderson said,
yeah,
when he started his writing course when he was a student, basically, he put a writing group together and he kind of led it. But it was to say, out of the 21 students that were there,
hmm,
7 of them made it to be professional writers of various kinds, and 4 of the 7 were the writing group that he had put together.
yeah, there's something about being part of a group that does
Yeah, and
make a
taking it
massive difference.
seriously as it's really just what I said. It doesn't. It's like committing to it, being there. That's your thing that you're doing every week, and having a number of words that you need to deliver for that date, and having people giving you feedback so you're progressing towards your goal.
And I do think there's a foundation
It's like
of
having a coach.
it is. And I do think there's a foundation of purpose and the whole philosophy of being part of a writing group and the way you give feedback and the as a craft. I think that's been the shift in my mind recently from reading Bird by Bird and these other books. It's a craft. It's a
Yeah.
and there's no right way to do it. And it does feel like this guy in his stuff, it feels a bit pretentious, but he talks about the importance of a sentence, crafting a great sentence, and then building from there. And it's not ever going to be perfect the first time.
No.
Although I have to say, I've written stuff that's just come out of me and it's been complete as it is, and I've barely gone back and made any changes.
Yeah, I haven't been writing the last few weeks. Well, technically,
I
I've been
haven't
writing
really
towards a
either.
couple of work bits, but for several weeks before that, I was pretty good at writing, sharing
Yeah, you
stuff on
were.
LinkedIn, and then I just went out the window. And I don't. The whole thing eludes me now. Of course, there's a lot of making wrong, etc. But the days go by. I have lots of things to do. It's not like I'm slacking too much. I don't think. Maybe I am, but anyway, it just and
You've
then
mentioned this
that's the
before.
experience I have about the last time in general, about growing old, and about
Yeah,
looking at like, wait a minute, I was really into writing, and then what happened the last 2 months?
there is
Just a
something
blur.
about a structure. Like studying for a master's is one structure I have. My day job is a structure. There is something about that means that there's people counting on me. I can't
Yeah.
I have to do stuff. But I find it difficult the idea of a a group that's put together intentionally with between people for the benefit of those people doesn't seem as high stakes as being in a job, or I've paid for my master's, I'm going to do this.
It takes a lot of intention. It's funny because I actually put a lot of work in while I was also busy with a lot of stuff in September
Mm-hmm.
to meet and recruit people for my regular weekly
Mm-hmm.
role-playing game group, which is actually really interesting because I really put a lot of energy to have that, to keep it going. And I
Mm.
put a lot of energy into having it all together. So anyway, it's just, all right, well, that's where I put my energy. It's not very mysterious. Uh, I could have put it into a writing group, but I didn't. I put it into this.
Well, that
So
also makes the point about we've got a limited amount of energy.
yeah,
Where are we going to put it? And
also
I
true.
found that I couldn't keep posting daily and going from 0 to 100 on Python and R, which
Yeah,
I got all my projects done and have all the assessments in. And this module that I'm doing now is much more kind of about the Venus here. Yeah, much more about the how you use graphs and present data, and our visual system, our perception, our pre-attentive system, the how you enclose things or use color or use a line graph or use dots. It's super interesting. And that's the first stage, and then we're going to get into the statistics and the numbers and the distributions and the maths of it all as well. So it's much more up my street and what I'm familiar with doing, rather than like I'd never done Python before, and now I'm programming in Python and doing linear regression models in Python. And have you heard of R?
Sounds impressive. Have you heard of what?
R. Capital letter R. It's a statistics language. Python and R.
Statistics language. Okay.
Yeah, it's a like
things Python. I know nothing about.
Python can be used for everything, but to build anything and everything. But R is for stats and big data sets and turning things and making models and all that kind of stuff, which I'd never heard of before. And then I've got really into it because you have to. So my project was we had two data sets.
You've been doing a lot of brand new stuff and learning new stuff.
Yeah. Now it just so happened, I think it was one of the hardest modules at the beginning. When you combine that with the beginning of the academic year, when it's super intense anyway, it's like a perfect storm of like, how the hell am I going to do all this stuff? And I did it, and I've done it. And now I'm like, there's nothing I can't handle.
Did you have to do a lot of late nights?
I was doing early mornings. I chose early mornings instead. I did a few late nights, but like, we had we could choose a data set for our final kind of project. I had a 3,000 line data set of car park data in Birmingham to analyze. And of course, there's problems with the data, and that's part of the whole process. How are you going to deal with missing values and whatever? And I really got into it. But this is what I signed up for, and submitted the projects, gave feedback on some peer-reviewed projects, and then the deadline was the 23rd, and we were going on holiday on the 21st, so I had to get it done.
Wow!
And then when you've got things like that in your life, you just do it. There's no choice; you just get it done.
Yes, the deadlines help, and being part of the program helps.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm calling it a program. Your studies. You have people are counting on your work. You have a deadline. Then you just get it done.
It's just different when you put all that energy into your role playing group. It's different when you have that kind of energy. Although we've been pretty good at having relatively regular conversations and streaming them. So I don't know. There's something
we were. That's why I was a bit annoyed that.
Yeah, you were. That because I was rubbish. That was on me.
It's just not being in communication and feeling like I was hating that I was annoyed, and I was hating that I was feeling like, well, he's clearly doing a lot of great things, and I'm not doing anything. I'm feeling like I'm a needy little.
You were in that comparison trap.
Always.
It's such a trap.
I mean.
It's a human being trap.
You know what? There's also just the point about LinkedIn is an interesting one. It just makes me think of that because every time I open it, I have that strong. It's almost impossible to not. And now I'm just thinking this out loud right now. And I didn't post or write for the last couple of weeks. And talking with you is reminding me that, and I'm talking about bird by bird. The thing that's important is to write rather than write on rather than write on LinkedIn. And if I think about it, I've not had, and I don't know, the last few weeks have been, anyway, this is just on work. I've had a lot of conversations that are not particularly positive these last few weeks. And just dealing with it. Anyway, just dealing with difficulties.
Well, the other book I read about writing that I think speaks to what you're saying is about writing online. And this guy, Nicholas Cole, who's a massively successful online writer, talks about the writing in public as a way of, I suppose it's kind of a bit like writing as part of a group, because you write in public, you post it, you get instant feedback. the impressions or the whatever is going to tell you. A bit like the putting it to the market will, but that's a whole other thing.
There's a yes and to that, because the algorithms of
That's what I was about to say. The algorithm.
So it's the market sort of is the market, because the algorithm decides who sees it and whether it's popular or not, and there you always have a wide opportunity to be comparing yourself to other people,
which is a trap.
Which is a trap, and comparing to what I have in terms of success in my work, which is not
as a freelancer now. Yeah, which is a tough.
Yeah, right now I'm finding it very. So I have more work as a teacher, and that's keeping me afloat right now. But I've had a lot of no's for jobs, a lot of, and I'm like, I'm clearly not doing the right thing, because I keep doing the same thing. It's not working. So whatever I'm doing, it's not working. And it seems like LinkedIn is part of the things that are not working. And it's not necessarily, even though I'm happy with the things I wrote so far, it's not necessarily helping in my development of work.
But then it's also not helping your state of mind and your creativity. Not helping my
state of mind, which is part of the reason why I probably put it to the side a little bit. And it's not helping me. That was where I was going in the first place with the point, which was thinking of Bird by a Bird. It's not helping me write, or it's not a structure to write. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it's not helpful. Well, it's not that it's not helpful. It could be, depending. But there's always looking at impressions, trying to figure out what the algorithm wants me to do, trying to figure out what the market wants, or what I want in the first place before all of that. And also just being realistic on the fact that right now, it seems like, for everywhere I'm hearing, that there's a lot of people, freelancers and otherwise, in marketing, and anybody more and more people calling themselves a strategist or some kind of consultant or advisor around marketing. And there's a lot of them that are out of work. So if only the best are still working, what's wrong? Well, what's wrong with me?
Nothing.
Well, no, clearly there is something wrong with me. Yeah, and I had a really good interview for a big job last week, and I didn't get it. I was really disappointed a few days ago. And I was also disappointed by a couple of no's, exchanging messages for another job here. You have too much experience. Another
too much experience.
Yeah, I actually realized I've heard that now several times, and now I'm like, oh, this is why I'm not getting anything back. I'm too old.
Hang on. Too much experience,
AKA
too old,
expensive.
Or too expensive. Yeah. Okay.
So, and I had weird email exchanges with this HR person going, oh, you have such an impressive and amazing CV. I'm like, well, sure, let's talk then.
Yeah,
but you never know.
Was that a full-time job then? It wasn't.
That was for a full-time job.
Project.
That was different.
It was. Wow.
And then I also had, sorry, I might as well I'm complaining at the moment, but I had a friend tell me, so I've extended my search for full-time jobs out of Paris as well. I'm also like, well, clearly something's not working, and I have to, and it's just really not working. So I'm not tied to Paris. I'm gonna have to move from my apartment next year. Maybe I move city, maybe I move country. And there's a bunch of other stuff anyway. So maybe, you never know if something interesting shows up. And Paris is not, just to say this other thing for context. I had another really nice interview conversation with another agency. And it was interesting where, all right, well, you have all this amazing experience. You're a international man, super senior, dealt with very large, complex international projects. Great. We don't have anything like that. So when we do, we'll call you. There may well be opportunities to work together in the future. In the meantime, I need somebody who's just got a few years experience.
It does smack of they want someone quick and cheap.
Yeah. And so now that's the other story. So a friend of mine started working with an agency in Barcelona and tells me, oh, well, there might be opportunities to work in Barcelona. And he's very senior as well. And I'm like, yeah, Barcelona's close to my family. I mean, sure, of course I would consider Barcelona. Let's talk. And it also seems like my approach to everything is let's talk. there's a lot HR. That's also like one or the other ones I knew already. Of course, I don't try to get through HR. They rarely want to talk to me. I want to talk to other people, but
Yeah.
because of anyway, but I'm getting actual feedback rather than just like no automated no emails the last few weeks. And in this particular case, he went in to check up because there was a role that opened that was titled Global Head of Strategy, which
This
seems
is
up my
the
street.
this is the Barcelona
Barcelona.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
didn't hear anything back, and he went to check, and he said, "Oh yeah, so the role was on hold. Fair,
Hmm.
that's fine." Which is a lot of things. That's another thing that's going on. A lot of roles are on hold because budgets are shrinking,
Yep.
inflation, da da da. You name it.
Yep.
Um, and that I was way too senior, and that they were looking for. And my friend also said it was ludicrous, but that they had in mind to look for a graduate. But I was
For
like,
a
but
global
a
what?
graduate is not a global head of strategy.
Exactly.
But it's the other underlying thing in all this is that if businesses think that they can hire a graduate for something called a global head of strategy, my branch in strategy is not valued, which is a problem in me being
Oh, that
specialist in
is
a branch that is
okay.
not being valued. If everybody's calling you
Okay.
that and you don't
Okay.
think that it's worth paying somebody who has experience for that kind of job, then there's a lot of different problems. And
No,
actually
that's good
corroborating
point.
this type of stuff. Now I'm trying to
Interesting.
make it not a cause rather than, but there is some correlation.
Hmm.
And just I'm doing a tangent and mixing something on together. But I was reading an article yesterday about, you've heard of the design consultancy IDEO? You've never
No.
heard of IDEO?
No. Should
Oh, I
I?
thought you would have. Yeah, you should have. I thought
Okay.
you would have. IDEO is one of the most famous design firms. Well, I guess for people who know,
I should know. Oh no, let me write it down.
IDEO invented a lot of different design processes and
Oh.
design things, and so anyway, all that to say, they just announced another round of layoffs. They're getting rid of half their staff. In 2020, they got rid of a third of their staff. They used to be like nearly 1,000 people. Now they're less than 500. They're going to be 300 soon. And
Wow.
the article
It's
was
an
talking about
indicator.
how there is a shift from companies that used to be design agencies and design firms. So
Hmm.
designing brands, designing industrial products, designing processes, designing all sorts of stuff. With very creative, and they brought the whole idea of design thinking to the table. On one hand, some big ones like Frog Design have been bought by management consultancies, and management consultancies have got the big hand, and they've also been buying marketing and advertising firms. And then there's a whole other
Uh-huh.
background, which is part of the reason why there's a lot of people looking for work and there's an enormous amount of competition, is that just, the economic difficulties, and they usually make it that the first people you get rid of are marketing and advertising.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a time of crisis, most people are not necessarily thinking to look at, oh, well, let's talk about our strategy, even though it's usually a good idea, but it doesn't feel like necessarily, depending on how much of a crisis you're in. So on one hand, they could be seen as all as excuses, which is kind of true. But on the other hand, there are circumstances that are quite real.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's those are the facts of what's going on. It's like, well, how
yeah,
do you respond to that?
so
And
yeah,
it,
so then my question is like, then how do I respond to that? One of the response and solutions I have is more teaching. That's what I have right
yeah.
now, and that's what I just had to like run into to be able to essentially pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm behind on a bunch of stuff. I'm the only piece of work. I don't even want to say, it doesn't matter. Nobody's watching. There might be a few people watching, but I only had one piece of work this summer, and so otherwise in almost 6 months since I've had a proper project. And I say almost 6 months, the only project I got this summer has not been paid. And I mean, like, it's serious
Oh.
problems. And the company I worked for is in serious problems that they didn't get paid. So I
Oh.
hate it, but I also sympathize.
This is
Um,
it does it doesn't sound like, yes, you could look at it as excuses, but it really does sound like an an industry economic wide
I've read a number of threads
thing
on
that's
Reddit
going on.
of advertisers, freelancers in the advertising and marketing subreddits of
Mm.
freelancers chatting in the UK, in the US, in different parts of Europe about how this is like the worst year ever for them.
I mean, because you looking back over your career path, you've done so many different things. you've clearly got a lot of value, but you're someone who could adapt as well. Which is
Yeah,
one
and
of the
that's,
things I
by the
admire
way,
about
that's
you.
the other thing that, of course, people tell me less, but I know it's there. Particularly in a time of day where people working on a project have the pick of the litter for whatever talent they want. So there's a lot of talented people out there that are looking for
Mm,
work,
mm.
whether full-time or freelance. And and as you said, I've done a lot of stuff. So a lot of people find my work and my profile very interesting, fascinating. I've traveled all around, exotic, etc. But most of the time, when push comes to shove, and a company is going to choose to hire somebody like, straight up versus exotic, they'll go with a straight up option.
Yeah, they will,
And I'm
because
not the
risk.
straight up option. I can't change that. I'm
Yeah,
never going to change that. So that's also why I keep circling around to the idea of building my own business. And
yeah.
it took me from early this year when I said, okay, I'm going to create my professional future out of the year, all the way to October to finally start working on a document, which I'm in the middle of working on, and I'm going to spend more time on it this week. So the last few weeks, I also, which that is a conscious choice, and it's I think a good one. Well, I think, of less time on LinkedIn and more purposeful time working towards my actual business
Well, you remember
goal and
way back,
project.
you were working your way through Tim Urban's octopus
Yeah,
thing, and it's a non-linear thing. It's, a breakthrough happens after nothing, and it
yeah.
can come out of nowhere. So, like, who knows? To me, it sounds exciting, and of
Thank
course,
you.
excitement goes with feeling scared at the same time.
Yeah, and this is it's a crisis time. It's rough at the moment. I'm going through like ups and downs and trying to press through with a bunch of different areas.
And
So yeah.
your theme for the year was like what not to do,
And I
right?
think I actually realized also so that's a good reminder. I try to remember that. I was also annoyed at not having our calls, and partly realizing that I really rely on them actually. So when they're not there, I need to have something else. Um, and that's also why I was saying I'd rather have either, complete so that I'm like, all right, well, I'm not doing that, so I can go and find something else. And also seeing that these calls have an enormous amount of value for me actually, that I really get a lot out of it. That you're usually, I mean, I enjoy our conversations. You usually, I mean, not you, you're always extremely encouraging towards me, which really it's very nice to hear.
It's true.
Particularly when, well, like, it's true to you, but when I
Yeah.
have things like, having my experience of looking for work and looking for projects is getting a lot of no's. And
Mm.
the more you get no, and the more you get ignored, and the more you get that, it's just the more you're like, well, obviously there's something wrong with me. I'm not doing it right. Now, I can't do much about that. That's not useful. But um, there's the situation. So, for example, just to finish on that job interview that I had a really great contact with the person in question who interviewed me.
Hmm.
Job sounded really challenging, super interesting, and they got somebody else who was more local. Uh, and
Mm.
and the person interviewing me still said, I really, really loved the conversation. There might be other opportunities to work in the future. I were exchanging emails for me to give her other contacts, where I was like, well, I'm nuts. I'm shooting myself in the foot. And then I'm like, all right, you know what? Maybe I am. But also, this is who I am. If she's asking for contacts, I'll give them the contacts if I have them. Um, and it's just, of course, there's so much talent to choose from that if somebody does have a big project, there's tons of really talented people looking for work. And every time I open LinkedIn, I have another person in French or in English going, I am joining the freelance adventure. I've set up as my own consultant in marketing. You're like, oh my God. And I can't remember if I told you this, but I was reminded of one of my clients I had lunch with earlier this year, who told me that, and I did tell you this in a few different ways, but who told me that, I don't know. I mean, he said, I really loved our work together. It was really, really good. And that was a great client to have because I worked with them for over a year and it was super interesting, etc. But he said, because I was talking about looking for other clients and networking and stuff like that. He's like, I don't know how it is in your industry, but I tell you that you have a lot of competition. I get
Mm.
like at least 10 to 15 emails a day on people telling me like they're going to give me advice on my marketing and strategy. Who they are,
Interesting.
what they do, I
I don't
don't
remember you
know.
saying this. That is 15
Yeah,
a
like he was like, I
day.
get 10 a day. I just
Wow.
don't, he was like, there's a lot of people and that all seem to be saying they're offering the same thing you do, more or less, one way or another. And that was done. And then I remember also the conversation I had with my friend in Detroit who have a business. We're like, if you're in a market with so much competition, get out.
Yeah.
It's not the right market to be playing in.
Oh, this is a friend of yours who's a business owner who said this is the friend that also said, like I said, you got so many ideas, talent, skills. And I'm going to come back to something I thought you said that was interesting. That like you could do whatever you want. Like there's stuff you could do.
And what's challenging is to come back to particularly when I'm in, difficult situations financially. I can't see the future, which is ironic. Yeah. Ironic for after a year of saying I'm going to create my future professionally. Right now, I have very little in terms of for next year, basically.
So the thing I want to come back to.
But anyway, I'm quickly. It doesn't matter. Let me see one more thing. Actually, go ahead.
The thing I want to come back to.
I'm already talking about more things that I thought I wanted to talk about publicly, but whatever.
Well, you use this phrase. I think you know the importance of it, but a lot of people don't. This is who I am. Use that phrase. This is who I am. I'll give
yes,
context.
and
like who are you? Who are you going to be about
this? But there's a lot of times I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should do something else, be someone else to try to fit in and get.
And that that's
the right kind of life, and then I also know that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's also too late. I mean, it's not too late, but I've been me for a while, and there's not really much.
Well, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about
the right way to say it. Yeah, I think you understand
like
what
who
I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I also know that you know what I'm saying when I'm talking about like who you being about it. Who are you? What are you like? There's so many different ways you can look at it. Like I'm coming back to a lot of the ways that I think about stuff is like for me, having a sense of purpose is important.
Yeah.
Using the Clifton Strengths thing, like I have belief in my top 5. So that's like, I have to know the why. And if I don't, I won't do it. I won't do anything.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really, 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 really important. But everybody has their own way of empowering themselves. There's lots of different frameworks you could use. And like, that whole sense of...
did I tell you that I did a collage? Did I share that with you?
No, you didn't.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I haven't done one recently. I was gonna.
I haven't done it in a long time.
They're so good.
Yeah.
You've definitely got something to offer. So, oh wow, is that A4?
And funny enough, it's my cousin who said, "Oh, we should do a vision board." I'm like, "All right, well, I guess about my professional future."
Is this your career?
I called it. What did I call it?
What's it called?
The Flavors of Business Ventures.
There's a lot of taste
and
food in
definitely.
there.
Well,
but there's also
what's funny is
pointing forward, pointing in direction.
Yeah. What's funny is so I circle around, and it's funny because you tell me that, and my other friends in Detroit told me like you realize you could do anything, and anything. Oh, now there's anything, yes, and there's also what the circumstances and possibilities and opportunities come up with in terms of like what's possible. So there's the possibility of being, which is anything, and then there's the possibility of actual reality opportunities, what you have in your bank account, where you're living, and all that jazz. So on that, and on what I want to do, I keep circling back to doing something with my brother. And the food is interesting. So, okay, there's a couple of things. One is the magazines that I had, because I haven't had magazines for a while. And I still like to do the physical manipulation because there's something really nice.
Me too. I love
about that. And I was at the hairdresser a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, I've been meaning to do a collage," because of course there's always magazines at the hairdresser.
Yeah.
So I took a bunch of the magazines she didn't need anymore. And then mostly they're just so the type of magazines is not my favorite type of magazines. It's not Wired.
You like Wired too?
Yeah, that's an example of the kind of things that I like. Which of course the magazines that I find the most inspiration is now. Anyway, all that to say that I did with what I had, but if you look at my collages, any of my collages that are about visions, stuff I like,
Future.
etc., as opposed to things that are problems or things
Yeah.
like that. There's always going to be food, basically. There's always
Really?
yeah, on all my collages, of course.
You
Now,
say, of course, because my collages are not like that.
well, there's food calls to me. I like it. And food means a lot of things. Food
Yeah.
means like sharing experiences and
Yeah.
social experiences
Family
around the table,
connection.
and family and connection and cooking and flavor and taste and enjoying life. And there's a lot to it. It's both necessary, and I love it. I do. So, and also, I mean,
So
maybe
not
just because
me.
it calls, so it's funny because but it's very mean. And it runs in the family too. But there's always food stuff in all magazines, including just cooking, at the very least, cooking recipes at some point in the fashion magazine or
I
whatever.
have to say, even if I was using fashion magazines, if we had the same set of magazines and we both did collages, mine would not look like yours.
No, but when the fashion ones are very funny because there are zero photos in the fashion magazines. Not all the time, but depends which collage I'm doing. Sometimes might be useful, but
I see. When I'm creating a collage, I do trust the creative process, but I usually have a color to express a
oh yeah,
mood
that's right. You
that
do
comes up,
color.
and
I'm
and
thinking of a lot of
colors
shapes and
really,
how I think of
and then
composition.
yeah, I think of the color, and then images tends to just pop up, and then they just get splurged on. I need to do a collage. I do, but
It was
that's
good to do a collage. It had been a long time, really a
there's
long time since
something
I
really
did a collage.
powerful about collaging because there's no words in
Yeah,
it. It's
I agree.
pure emotion expression, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a very cool. Actually, I was talking to a friend who's studying she's doing a master's in psychology yesterday. I was talking to her yesterday, and she just said it's called kinesthetic memory
Mm.
or kinesthetic process or something. So anyway, it's just like thinking and through
Physically.
movement and physically that you have a different kind of language. So and landmark and wisdom has another word for it, but
Oh, I know what you mean, but yeah,
well,
there's
there are types of languages. There's representation,
representational.
immediate, which is emotional. And so this allows for, anyway, the photos allow for other types of language, but this is still representation because it's images. But it can also be immediate
No,
because it's
there's
huh?
it's there's I can't remember, but there's more to it. Either way,
Anyhow,
that
I should wrap
collage
up.
food is calling.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest opportunities, it seems. So anyhow, I'm very happy to be working on that. There was another funny thing is that I met with, in September I was meant to have a big job that was canceled. It was also upsetting.
Yeah, yeah.
And I met with the agency who wanted to hire me, and and I thought that it was because of all those efforts I made on LinkedIn and that I had like articles that had lots of impressions that I got on their radar. And he was like, no, not at all. Like, we just looked at a freelance directory. This is a French freelance directory that I signed up on ages ago, and I forgot it was there. And they were like, yeah, sometimes we just look for people there just in case, and that's where we found you. I was like, oh, so basically nobody sees my things on LinkedIn. And so that's where I was like, I think I'm just feeding the LinkedIn machine when I'm playing LinkedIn.
You
So
might
if I
be.
want to be writing, then it's great. But maybe so the last 2 weeks I realized I was like starting to berate myself for not posting. And I was like, I should post. So I did on Friday, and I didn't even look at how many posts I had. And I did it very quickly. And that's what I should be doing. If I'm posting, I should not be spending time to write a thought through article. I should just write one silly
Yep,
paragraph.
yep,
And in this case, it was the Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX thing,
yep.
and the Super Bowl ad, because that's what I gave the students as well.
Okay.
Which before we go, I want to ask you this.
Hmm.
The ad, so February 2022 ad, a 2.5 minute ad for the Super Bowl. So you can imagine how much that costs. A lot of money. With Larry David of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yep. And
Uh,
Seinfeld.
and the structure of the ad was a joke where Larry David is presented with different period costumes of somebody showing him the great invention of the time and day. Look, the wheel. This is never going to catch on. Nobody needs this stuff. And so, like every type of invention you can possibly imagine that's super popular. And Larry David every time going, no, this is never going
That's
to work.
rubbish. Yeah.
Stop, rubbish. And the final one a guy presenting to him, look, FTX, super safe, very easy to get into crypto. You should totally do it. Larry David going, nah, I don't think it's going to catch on. Of course, very funny. The day that Sam Bankman-Fried is condemned for 7 counts of fraud. And that's what I posted on LinkedIn. I said, hey, it's a good day to rewatch the ad. And that's what I asked the students. I said, like, summarize the article, then look at the Super Bowl ad and tell me what the message is. And like, you know, what do you think of it in light of the article? And my question to you, because you could summarize it pretty fast. Would you give this to, how long would you give your high school students to do this type of exercise? Would you give it this kind of article? Or do you think it's too complex for them?
Okay, so for the younger ones, like 14, 15, 16, I wouldn't give them an article like that. Okay. I usually give, because I give them a newspaper article, but I like BBC News, so I give them something straightforward like that. For the older ones, I would totally give them, like, so we're talking 16, 17, 18, especially the older ones, the 18-year-olds, I would totally give them something like it was The Verge, right?
Yeah. And
totally
part of it, so
like
I think where I went very wrong, where I went wrong, is my tangents at the last minute. So what I mean by that is I first read an article of The Economist, and I was trying to save it as PDF because it's behind a paywall, and so it was a little bit shorter and more concise. But then I needed to have something that was open access, so I looked at The Verge. And then I gave them both links, and I said, okay, read both of those, choose to focus on one or the other, or mix both if you feel like it. Which was
too many choices.
And
just give them one.
One more mistake, which was I also gave, because I'm just doing too many, I was doing it fast. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, I'll add the Coinbase article from November 2022 to read as background. Just I added it, and it was a mistake again. So this is out of like doing things fast and experience as a teacher, just like learned by doing. It's like, and I saw it afterwards. I was like, I should have given them just one. And you're right, I should have gone to something like BBC because it's open access. So it's a good point.
It's open access, but it's also straightforward. The writing is very clean and clear. The Economist can be a bit full on. See, I mean, even in the module that I'm doing, all about using graphs and how graphs.
And then the other thing is that I'm asking you, and I don't know if that's the right gauge, because you're doing like high school students. Mine are older, but English is their second language, and they don't have. It's not a fully international English curriculum, so they don't have a lot of classes in English. I had never met them, and I needed some way to gauge the level of English. So
you try BBC News. That's usually pretty good, and you could. That's good for summarizing. The Verge was, I would give that to 18-year-olds but this is in England.
They're master's level, so they're 20, 21.
So yeah, but their English isn't their first language.
Yes.
So I found it accessible. I had to, but when I wrote my summary, I kind of realized like I needed to define cryptocurrency or something. I think you read mine,
and this is of course where I think a lot of them got really stuck on or lost in trying to understand cryptocurrency, and then when you go down that rabbit hole, it's too stressful. Now I also was trying to be very, very clear with them that I said, like, it doesn't matter what you finish and what you do, I just want to see your level of English.
That's another good way of judging. Like it,
but I also, first time I see them, it was online. I have no rapport with them. I was given this thing at the last minute. I was trying to build it while I was doing it. I mean, I'm justifying myself, but anyway.
No, but that's tough. That's tough for anybody. Never mind, that would be tough for me. Like, forget it. It's just difficult. Unless you've got, like, no, I've got a bank of strategies that I could call on.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first port of call would have definitely been BBC News in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, I should have readability. Just gone to that. That seems so obvious now that you're saying it.
Yeah, well, of course it does. Hindsight, but the summary structure, I think has been one of the most useful things that I've ever created, because it really forces them to think in terms of what's important.
Yeah. And the content of the name of the class is deciphering and analyzing, business, social, and societal and advertising news. So basically the summarizing of articles and in the objective and the learning objective is to sharpen their curiosity for international stuff going on.
Well, the only downside of BBC is it can be a bit too not very international.
Well, for the French people, it is.
True, true, very true. But I think this might be a good place to end. Is like,
Yeah.
I'll bring it together.
Mhm.
The creative thinking, the reading. The more see, I bought my nephew. He's 13. I bought him a copy of Dune.
Yeah.
And like he loved Harry Potter. He loved the Percy Jackson series.
Mhm.
He read some of the Star Wars canon, non-canon stuff as well. I'm like, it's time for you
How
to
old is he, sorry?
experience 13.
Okay.
So it's going to challenge him.
It's going to be a bit challenging for 13, but it's good.
So whether he reads it now and then comes back to it later, I said to him, give it to your kids. I want it to be a thing.
I think I was 15, 16 when I tackled it.
Yeah,
so I
didn't
a
even
little bit more reading beforehand, but
I didn't even go near it until I was 20. So the the quality of the reading enhances my and everyone's, in my opinion, writing.
Yeah.
And then writing is an expression of thought process. How am I putting across my thoughts? And I think one of the best ways, and I tell the people I teach this, if you can read and summarize, that is developing your ability to interpret and think in a way that is you can practice. It's like lifting weights in the gym.
Yeah.
Read an article, summarize it. Read an article, summarize it. That's
going
to develop your ability.
Is to look at how much have I put them off by giving them something too difficult to begin with.
And that's okay.
I get them back
it's a learning process. You will get them back in. The BBC is very accessible. Very accessible.
The rest of it was me fixing and working out what their instructions for their work is, because really I want them to go and look for news and they choose, what it is they're talking about. So yeah. And for through the analogy on your nephew, is it? Cousin?
Yeah.
Nephew in Dune. Well, yeah, he'll figure it out. I mean, he can start it, and then he could put it to the side if he's not ready for it. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So there's a lot going on in what we talked about creativity and future and ideas and what do you think our next conversation could be? What could be the jump off point? Any ideas?
Well, there's a number of things. I have been putting a lot of effort into role-playing games, and I've been loving the actual play and Blades in the Dark. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that I've been reading in terms of role-playing game theory, in terms of game design, in terms of narrative structure. We could talk about that. We could talk about writing the business plan, which I'll have. So I'm not available next weekend, but I should be the following. The following dates that you gave me, rather.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's talk about business plans, research, and narrative structures, and we'll weave in Blades in the Dark. Is that the Peaky Blinders one?
Yeah. Oh, and I finished Peaky Blinders.
I haven't even finished it. I need to finish it.